Hey guys, tonight we take a long, slow walk through a war so strange, so unbelievably drowsy, that you'll probably fall asleep before the first trebuchet fires a goose feather. It's a tale that begins not with swords or dragons, but with a single, puffy, arrogant cloud. Imagine it. A wide Mongolian sky, clean and blue like stretched silk, with one smug cumulus parked right over a royal nap chamber. It just hovers there, doesn't move. Just looms. And the Khan, well, he's not having it. You're there. Yes, you, with your boots in the dry, cracked earth, squinting upward and shielding your eyes. The sky is whispering nonsense again. People are tired, like deliriously tired. Yurts are full of tossing bodies. Soldiers fall asleep on guard duty. The royal astrologer has gone cross-eyed. And this cloud, this lazy, bloated puff of defiance, seems to be the only one sleeping well. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing all the sleepy corners of the world tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins with an official scroll. Cracked wax, frantic handwriting, a smudge of what might be goat hair or just breakfast. It is delivered to the war minister at precisely nap o'clock, 1:17 p.m. local sun shadow time. He squints, confused, rereads it, then gently mutters, "Did we really just declare war on a cloud?" Yes, you did. You, a rather reluctant apprentice to the Empire's sleep ministry, find yourself at the center of it all. You didn't even want this job. You applied to herd sheep or possibly bake ceremonial dumplings. But here you are, tasked with organizing supply lines for the strangest battle in Mongolian history. It started earlier that week, when the royal astrologer burst into the Khan's tent in a frenzy. He claimed the cloud wasn't just drifting, it was watching. Worse, it was drinking dreams. He'd seen it pulsate every time someone nearby fell asleep. By the third day, it hadn't moved. Not even a puff. "It's nesting," the astrologer hissed. "Clouds don't nest." Historians still argue whether this astrologer was just high on fermented mare's milk, or if he was on to something greater. An early recognition of circadian disturbances caused by unusual weather pressure patterns. But the Khan, he didn't need science. He just needed sleep. And that's when he muttered the fateful words, "Summon the pigeon. We go to war." The war scroll was signed with a ceremonial yak hair brush dipped in sleep ink, an old concoction made from crushed poppy, plum ash, and sighs of exhausted monks. The military council met. They laughed. Then the Khan glared. No one laughed again. The logistics were a mess. Who knew how to aim a ballista vertically? How do you flank vapor? You were told to draw up weather maps and draft a tactical drizzle perimeter. Whatever that meant. One general tried to hire a falconer to train birds to bite clouds. Another suggested yelling very loudly in unison to see if the vibration would shake it loose. Meanwhile, the city grew strange. Sleep-deprived poets wandered in loops, reciting half-finished lullabies. Markets sold anti-cloud hats woven with copper and goat resentment. Children were forbidden from imagining shapes in the sky. One elderly woman claimed she'd once seen the same cloud over Gobi 37 years ago, and that afterward, her husband had dreamed of teeth for months. Not his own, just teeth. You took this seriously, not because you believed her, but because she handed you a homemade amulet made of pigeon bones and wool scraps and said, "Wear this. The cloud can't smell you then." And for some reason, you did. By now, the war drums were beating, slow and irregular, like the pulse of a narcoleptic elephant. Soldiers gathered. Scribes composed pre-battle chants, including the now famous "Fluff Be Gone," which was mainly just people whispering menacingly at the sky. Then came the launch ceremony. Trebuchets, ancient, beautiful machines usually reserved for rock flinging at rival clans, had been repurposed. Their new payloads? Giant sacks of sleeping herbs. One bright-eyed alchemist theorized that if the cloud really was alive, perhaps overwhelming it with too much sleep essence would kill it. And so the cloud was bombarded. The sacks arced upward, slow, graceful, surreal. Most exploded far too low. One drifted into a nearby yurt, turning a small wedding into an impromptu 72-hour group nap. Nothing reached the cloud. It just hovered, insultingly so. Next came the negotiations. A shaman with enormous eyebrows and a voice like wind through antlers was hoisted up a watchtower. He chanted sky prayers, blew into a flute carved from an owl's leg, waited. No response. Then a single drop of rain hit his head. He nodded solemnly and declared, "It spat on me. We proceed to Phase 2. You didn't ask what Phase 2 was. That's how you ended up hiking into the steppe that night with a sack of chalk dust, a war goat named Tulu, and a map that simply read, Lurid East." There was talk of kites, enormous ones. Maybe the cloud could be distracted? You stood in the field, waving your arms, yelling dream junk at the sky. I dreamt of forgetting my own feet. Once I napped in a tree and woke up married. My grandmother invented snoring. Still, it hovered, and people, important people, were getting weird. The Khan started wearing sleep masks in public. Someone tried to fire an arrow at the sun. The royal sleep historian insisted that clouds had once been revered as lullaby spirits, and maybe this one had simply lost its purpose. All it needs is to be sung to, he said, then promptly fainted from exhaustion. You watched it all unfold. You sat on your war goat, watching a nation unravel not in fire and blood, but in slow, creeping, blink-heavy madness. You passed scrolls between generals who slurred their commands like sleepwalkers. You comforted a soldier who'd forgotten how to close his eyes. You buried an envoy who sleep-jogged off a cliff. One morning, after 3 weeks of failed offensives and zero cloud movement, you noticed something. A faint glimmer on the cloud's underside. Like a light blinking? You squinted. No, not a light. It was a yurt. A tiny, perfect yurt, floating inside the cloud. You said nothing. For a while, you weren't even sure you'd seen it. But later that night, while sharpening your ceremonial bedtime spoon, a real military item, don't ask, the old pigeon bone amulet woman reappeared beside your tent. She said only one word, nested, and walked away. From that moment on, you began to believe. Not in cloud monsters or dream drinkers, or even floating yurts, but in the sheer, unstoppable absurdity of your situation. This wasn't just a war. This was the first and only documented military conflict between humans and precipitation. And you were going to see it through. After all, if the cloud was nesting, then what happened when it hatched? You sit up straighter in your saddle, not because anything makes sense now, but because it all suddenly doesn't in just the right way. You saw a yurt inside the cloud, and the old woman confirmed it with a single word, nested. Now that she's vanished into the dusk again like an extremely slow and judgmental owl, you're left wondering if anyone else saw it too. Back in the capital, sleep-deprived paranoia is setting in. Ministers walk into walls. The Khan, once a robust figure who bellowed commands and devoured goat stew with terrifying cheer, now mutters about dream thieves in his soup. He started napping with one eye open, which incidentally has become a trend. Half the court now claims to half sleep, just in case the cloud tries something. You're called to the newly formed Sky Tactics Division, a tent full of weary strategists drawing battle maps of atmospheric pressure. They're convinced the cloud is a scout. It's not the enemy, one mutters. It's a lookout. There's something worse behind it. Another insists the cloud is actually part of a larger organism, a sky beast so massive only one part is visible. He calls it the cumulocolossus. Historians still argue whether this was just the opium talking, or if the Mongols were intuitively grasping ideas later echoed in modern meteorology's understanding of weather systems and pressure fronts. But in this moment, nobody has time for scholarly restraint. You're told to ride out to the steppes of whispers, where clouds are said to first form their thoughts. You blink. Is that poetic? A code? Or are these people just really, really tired? You go anyway. You travel east, through landscapes that ripple like silk tossed in slow motion. Herds of camels blink at you with deeply unhelpful expressions. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a storm grumbles, so distant it might just be your stomach. As night falls, you arrive at a lonely outpost where a group of monks have gathered on a cliffside, heads tilted skyward, mouths agape. One turns to you and whispers, "We've been listening to the clouds." You raise a skeptical eyebrow. He adds, "They're learning our lullabies." It's at this point you stop questioning things. There's only so much skepticism you can maintain when a war on a cloud is in full swing and everyone's treating it like standard Tuesday news. You sit with the monks and listen. The sky makes sounds. Low rumbles, soft breezes, strange pops. It's not exactly a lullaby, more like a snore in reverse. Back in the capital, the cloud has moved slightly. A mere wobble, really, but it sends everyone into a frenzy. The Khan calls it an act of aggression. An emergency sleep tribunal is convened. Now, the sleep tribunal is normally a sleepy affair, designed to resolve snoring disputes between neighboring yurts or rule on the ethical use of dream herbs. But today, it's a courtroom drama. Witnesses are called. One claims to have seen her dreams leaking upward like smoke. Another swears he slept soundly under the cloud and woke up angry at birds. His wife nods grimly. Then the Khan himself appears. Eyes bloodshot, beard slightly uneven. "I had a dream," he says, "where I was trying to sleep inside a sleep, but every time I almost did, a cloud laughed at me," gasps, or yawns. Hard to tell. You lean against the back wall, chewing a strip of dried plum leather and trying not to think about the floating yurt. But you can't help it. It's there, in your memory, sharp as glass. That tiny roof, those miniature felt walls, gently swaying inside the cottony abyss. The tribunal ends with a new decree. Clouds may no longer loiter. Weather must be directional and purposeful. Wandering fluff will be harassed until motion resumes. You help draft a proclamation. Mongolia shall not be shaded without cause. To enforce this, the newly minted sky cavalry begins training. You watch as warriors on horseback ride in concentric circles, launching slingshots upward. They paint targets on kites, light them on fire, and let them drift into the clouds, sending smoke signals of disdain. One group tries trained hawks again. This time, they fit them with tiny mirrors to reflect dreams upward. Predictably, the hawks just fly off and sit on things. In the dead of night, something changes. You wake to silence. The city's usual murmur, snoring, fire crackles, occasional sheep argument, is gone. Everyone's awake. Everyone's staring up. The cloud has multiplied. Now there are three, not directly overhead, but circling slowly, like vultures. Puffy, innocent-looking vultures, but ominous nonetheless. A whisper goes around. They're nesting. Panic flares. Markets close. Monks chant. The sleep ministry releases a pamphlet called "How to Tell If Your Pillow is Spying on You." You're sent to investigate an ancient scroll recently found in the saddle of a long-dead courier. It's brittle, ink-faded, written in a mix of Old Mongolic and sheer lunacy. But one phrase stands out. Beware the cloud that never changes. For it is not a cloud, but a thought the sky refuses to forget. You read that 3 times, then eat the scroll. Why? You're not sure. You were hungry. The Khan applauds your initiative. Meanwhile, more reports surface. Villagers claim clouds follow them across fields. A shepherd in the north insists his sheep have begun sleeping in formation, as if spelling something. He draws you a diagram. It spells ZZZZ. A turning point comes when a caravan reports the impossible. A cloud that passed overhead smelled like wet feathers and lavender. That's not just poetic. That's specific. Now the sleep ministry brings in sky shamans. They begin burning dreamwood, rare trees said to whisper forgotten dreams when ignited. The smoke smells like childhood regrets and roasted chestnuts. One shaman breathes it in, stares at the cloud, and begins sleepwalking toward it. He walks for 3 days. You follow, not because you believe, but because you have no choice. Orders. Also, the ministry promised you a slightly better blanket if you returned with results. On the 3rd night, the shaman stops. He points upward. You look. The cloud is right above you, close now. Close enough you feel like you could almost touch it if you jumped high enough while standing on an extremely cooperative camel. And again, the yurt. Only this time you see movement. A shape. Inside. Humanoid. Sleeping. Sitting. Maybe just being. You whisper this to the shaman. He nods and says, "It's the sleeper. The first one." You ask for clarification. He offers none. Historians still argue whether this moment marked a spiritual turning point for the war, or just the peak of mass psychogenic illness due to sleep deprivation. Either way, things change after this. The cloud becomes a pilgrimage site. Pilgrims leave offerings, small pillows, feathers, broken alarm clocks. The Khan forbids this, then immediately sends his own offering. A silk blanket embroidered with the words, "Sleep or else." You're recalled to the capital for what is now being called the First Strategic Nap Conference. Leaders from every province arrive. Most doze through the opening ceremony. One man from the Western Plains is so deep in sleep, he begins speaking fluent owl. A translator is summoned. She insists he's just reciting a stew recipe. Eventually, the conference produces a plan, mass synchronized napping. If enough people sleep at once, maybe the cloud will be drawn in, or sated, or explode. No one really knows. You help coordinate. Bells ring out. Blankets are distributed. The Khan's lullaby choir sings a haunting version of "Dream On, You Lazy Sky Lump." And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, everyone sleeps. Even you. And that's when you dream, not of the cloud or the war or your goat, but of the yurt. You're inside it. There's a table, a bowl of something warm, and across from you, a figure. They lean forward, just a silhouette, and whisper, "It's not war. It's weather thinking about war." You wake up shivering, and overhead, the cloud is gone. You wake up in a daze, jaw sore from clenching, and the distinct taste of half-remembered soup lingering on your tongue. Not real soup, dream soup, phantom broth. You're unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Above you, the sky is a perfect, empty blue.
No clouds, no suspicious puffs.
Just pure, blank nothing. You stare for a long time, as if waiting for the clouds to reappear out of guilt. Back in the capital, the disappearance is greeted with cautious celebration. There's a parade. Not a big one, just a few people with sleep-deprived drumbeats and some goats in ribbons, but it's something. You receive a medal in the shape of a closed eye. It's called the Order of Potential Rest. The Khan gives a speech in which he declares victory, admits he doesn't understand metaphysics, and also accidentally invents the concept of the napocalypse. A hypothetical end-time scenario in which everyone falls asleep at once and reality forgets to keep functioning. You're not sure whether to write that down or burn it. For a few days, things are almost normal. But then the pigeons arrive. First, it's just a few, then hundreds, then thousands. They land on rooftops, perch on statues, block chimneys. Every morning, they coo in perfect synchronization. No one knows where they came from, but every single pigeon seems to be looking at the same thing. The sky. More accurately, the spot where the cloud used to be. A monk with one lens missing in his glasses proposes that pigeons are avian diviners, creatures sensitive to dream currents. He's ignored until a pigeon steals the Khan's hat. Suddenly, he's promoted to cloud consultant. Now you're on pigeon duty. You're given a scroll titled "How to Decode Pigeon Staring Patterns," and a stick for moral support. The birds do not blink. You lie on your back and stare with them, trying to understand. And just as your eyes start to close from boredom, you see it. A shimmer, not a cloud, a ripple. The air pulses, just for a moment, like heat haze but colder, and then it's gone. You run to report this to the Sky Tactics Division. They respond by deploying the Sleep Signal Corps, teenagers with massive drums trained to beat a rhythm known to induce lucid dreams. The idea is maybe if enough people dream clearly, they can lure the cloud out again, or force it into clarity, or just really annoy it. The rhythm echoes through the city. Boom, top top, boom. The pigeons join in, cooing in time. You're not sure if this is a military tactic or a really avant-garde sleep festival. But it works. That night, the cloud returns. Sort of. It's not just one now. The several, flickering in and out, like poor reception on a dream channel. You count 5, maybe 7, and inside each one, a flicker of something architectural. Not just yurts anymore. Temples, beds, entire staircases, floating and vanishing like soap bubbles with blueprints. People lose their minds. Some try to build matching structures on the ground to anchor the dreams. One man begins constructing a spiral staircase to nowhere, convinced it'll connect to the cloud floor. Another woman insists the clouds are staging an intervention. Historians still argue whether these architectural cloud visions were hallucinations, shared cultural archetypes, or a side effect of intense sleep debt and spiritual panic. Some even suggest the Mongols stumbled upon a kind of cognitive cartography, a map of sleep itself made visible in the atmosphere. You get summoned to a yurt lined with silver thread. Inside is the Khan's newest advisor, a child, 8 years old, silent. She doesn't speak, but she draws. Constantly, she hands you a drawing. A massive bed, floating in the sky, with ropes hanging down like roots. She says, her minder explains, that the clouds are nesting again, preparing. For what? For a storm. The minder shrugs. Or a memory. Suddenly, clouds aren't the only problem. Reports pour in from the far borders. Sleepwalkers. Entire villages found wandering in their night clothes, murmuring nonsense about the ladder made of snoring, and the door that only opens when you forget your name. They're harmless, mostly, confused, soft-spoken, but they all point in the same direction, northeast. The Khan sends scouts. They return pale and mumbling. The ground there, it dreams, whatever that means. You're sent too, obviously. You travel days through the wind-hummed steppe, through valleys so quiet your own breathing sounds rude. Eventually, you reach it. A crater. Enormous. Quiet. Filled not with water or rock, but fog. And not natural fog. This is sleep-thick. Breathy. Warm. The kind of air that makes your eyelids tremble. You enter. You probably shouldn't, but you do. Inside, you find nothing. And then everything. It's hard to describe. Sounds stretch. Colors bloom too slowly. You hear conversations you haven't had yet. You feel the weight of unspoken thoughts pressing on your skin. And hovering above the center, the original cloud. Just one, but enormous. And asleep? You don't know how to explain it, but you know, the cloud isn't watching. It's dreaming, and its dreams are leaking into yours. You see flashes. A nomad child napping under a tree, a cat curled inside a felt boot, a yurt swaying in storm wind. Images not your own, a collective sleep memory maybe, a weathered archive of human rest. When you wake, you're outside the crater, with a blanket tucked around you, the child's drawing still clutched in your hand. Back in the capital, they've started calling it the Great Drowse. The cloud comes and goes now, but it's gentler, less ominous. People say their dreams feel richer, like they're being watched over by a sleepy guardian. But the Khan isn't satisfied. He insists the war isn't over. The cloud only slumbers. That means it can wake. So the Sky Tactics Division begins training again, this time in reverse ambushes. You lay traps of comfort, feather pits, warm milk geysers, hammocks disguised as battle formations. You build what you call the snooze field, a massive stretch of terrain engineered to be the most relaxing place imaginable. It smells like toasted oats and has a permanent soft breeze. People visiting the snooze field report waking up more well-rested than before they were born. And one night, as you lie in the field with your eyes half open, you see it. The cloud drifts overhead, and then it stops, low, heavy, like it's lying down, and you could swear it sighs. You roll over and fall asleep smiling. Just before you slip under, you hear a voice. Your own voice? The clouds? Murmur, maybe we weren't fighting it. Maybe we were trying to remember it. You're not awake. You're also not quite dreaming. You're somewhere in that delicious, molten in-between, where your limbs feel syrupy and the edge of your mind curls like parchment over a candle. Except you're also walking, barefoot, across what seems to be an endless plain of stitched-together pillows. Quilted terrain, slightly damp with dew, stretches as far as you can see. The stars overhead look drowsy, like they're blinking slower than usual. Then it hits you. This isn't a dream you are having. It's a dream you're inside, a communal dream. And the host? That same drifting, sleepy cloud. You sit down on a cushion mound shaped like a yak and close your eyes. When you open them again, you're not alone. Figures shimmer into focus. All around you, people in various states of half-sleep move like underwater dancers. A shaman who floats 6 inches off the ground, whispering lullabies in a long-forgotten dialect. A merchant trying to sell blankets made of pure REM fiber. A horse that only trots if you're humming. It becomes clear. This place, this strange, shared dreamscape, is not chaos. It has its own logic, its own rituals, its own residents, and some of them have been here a long time. One in particular draws your eye. An old woman, dressed in patchwork robes that seem to flicker between eras, prehistoric fur one moment, modern pajamas the next. She greets you with a yawn so profound your own jaw aches in sympathy. "You're new," she says, and her voice smells like chamomile. "But you've touched the numb cloud, haven't you?" You nod, slowly, carefully, like if you move too fast, you'll wake the whole plane. She tells you that the cloud is not a threat. Not really. It's an archive, a floating memory bank of every nap, every doze, every almost sleep that ever was. Sleep, she whispers, wants to be remembered. It hates being interrupted. That hits hard. You think of all the wars, inventions, alarms, coffee beans. Of all the times humanity swore that rest was optional. You were never fighting it, she continues. You were fighting your guilt for needing it. That's when you realize this dream isn't just yours. It's stitched together from a billion fragments. A boy in Constantinople who fell asleep counting coins. A sailor who drifted off in a crow's nest. A grandmother in Uganda snoring softly as thunder rolled outside. This dream is a refuge, but it's also starting to fray. The colors dim, the figures flicker, the stars grow sharper, more alert. A buzzing noise interrupts the softness. A mosquito? A glitch? Then boots. Not real boots, dream boots, but military dream boots. They march in perfect time, shaking the pillow plains, scattering sleep mice and upsetting the shaman, who floats away in a huff. The boots belong to the Vigil Corps, not Mongolian, not anyone's, really. The Vigil Corps are universal. They wear pinstripe armor and carry clipboards. They believe in hyperconsciousness. They think rest is a weakness. Their leader's name is the Alarm. Yes, just the Alarm. He's exactly as loud as you'd expect. His face is square, like a snooze button. His voice, that horrible beep 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 of a hotel clock you forgot to reset. He calls dreams unauthorized mental vacations, and insists the cloud be detained for thought smuggling. You try to explain. You talk about the shared memories, the sleepy wisdom, the nap that saved an empire. But the alarm doesn't care. He wants structure, sharp lines, sleep quotas, dream curfews, and worst of all, he wants to wake the cloud. No more metaphysical fluff, he barks. Time to restore baseline vigilance. Suddenly, things unravel. The dream begins to shake. The pillow ground goes stiff. The stars brighten to a clinical white. And the figures, they flicker out one by one, like bedtime stories reaching their last page. You run. You don't know where, just away, until you trip over something large, soft, and wheezing. The cloud. It's lying on the ground now, heaving gently. Its color is fading. Its shape, a deflating castle. You crawl into the folds and whisper nonsense. Comfort words, half-remembered lullabies, the hum of an old yurt's roof in wind. You tell it, it's okay. You don't have to be awake. And the cloud trembles. From within it, light seeps out. Not blinding light, just enough to see them. The dreamsmiths. You've never seen them before, but somehow you recognize them. They are old, maybe ancient, dressed in robes of woven shadow and sunlight. They carry brushes, quills, tiny hammers. They look at you and say, it's time. For what? To defend the dream. You blink and find yourself awake, back in the real world, or what passes for it. Except everything's quieter, not silent, just hushed, like the world is trying not to disturb something fragile. The Khan's tent is now embroidered with clouds. A new banner flies, a closed eye half winking. You're not a soldier anymore. Your new title, Dream Envoy. Your job? To convince people that the war is over, not because you won, but because you understood. You travel the empire holding sleep ceremonies. People gather at dusk to share their dreams. Some dream of past lives. Some dream of future snacks. One man insists he dreamed a complete opera sung by frogs. He receives honorary status. The people begin to speak of the Great Drift, a prophecy that one day the cloud will return permanently, and all humanity will share one last, peaceful sleep before transforming into something else. You're skeptical, but then the pigeons come back. Only a few, but instead of staring at the sky, they stare at you. One drops a note. It reads, "You left your slipper in the dream. Come back soon." You laugh. You cry a little, and that night you sleep deeper than ever. You dream of the old woman again. She offers you tea. It smells like memory. "You're getting better at this," she says. "At what?" "At letting go." She hands you a pillow shaped like a yak, and behind her you see the cloud again. It's smiling. You awaken in a hammock shaped like a crescent moon. A real one, or at least as real as anything is now. Morning is gentle. The air smells like cardamom and warm wool. Somewhere nearby, a rooster yawns before it crows, like even he's not ready to be upright yet. The Mongol capital, once a thrumming hub of horsemen, messengers, and sharp-eyed watchmen, is now quiet in a new way. Not dead, not idle, just dream-aware. You get up slowly, legs tangled in sleep. A child runs past you holding a kite string. At the end of the string is not a kite, but a tiny, polite cloud, tethered like a balloon. It winks at you. Yes, clouds wink now. You've stopped questioning this. Back at the Sky Tactics Division, now rebranded as the Department of Naptime Diplomacy, a meeting is in session. The War Council has been disbanded. In its place, the Cloud Circle, a group of sleep historians, herbalists, ufologists, and exactly one pigeon. The pigeon is wearing a monocle and a tiny sash. You're briefed on a new development. "Something's forming," says your old commander, now demoted to Chief Hammock Inspector. "In the eastern sky." "Another cloud?"
No.
"Bigger, slower, circular, pulsing, like a wheel made of breath." They call it the yawn storm. It starts with birds falling asleep mid-flight. Then clouds begin gathering in symmetrical rings. Entire cities report mass naps. Not accidental naps, orchestrated ones. Citizens lie down where they are. Markets, temples, rivers, and just rest. It's peaceful at first. But then come the echoes. At first, you think they're real people. Old friends, lost pets. A teacher who once gave you a sour plum and told you to question rain. But then you realize they're dream memories. Flesh and blood, yes, but stitched from sleep. They only speak in questions. Their feet don't leave prints. They can't eat soup. One echo walks up to you and asks, "What color was your first bedtime story?" Another whispers, "Would you be more or less afraid if dreams had teeth?" You ask who sent them. They point up. The cloud? No, past the cloud. That's when the old woman returns. You find her sitting at the edge of a dune made entirely of unspoken lullabies. They hum softly if you step too hard. "The yawn storm isn't a threat," she says. "It's a transition." You frown. "To what?" She shrugs, then pours tea into a cup that wasn't there a moment ago. "Some say sleep is the rehearsal for death," she says, handing you the cup. "Others say it's the only time we remember who we are between lifetimes." You sip. The tea tastes like bedtime on your favorite childhood blanket. Historians still argue whether the yawn storm was a weather event, a psychic reckoning, or the side effect of humanity remembering how to actually rest. Some suggest it was triggered by the cloud reaching full maturity, a metaphysical puberty, if you will. Whatever the cause, the consequences are mounting. A caravan of whispering monks arrives from the far west. They wear blindfolds and speak only in rhyme. They claim the yawn storm will spiral inward, collapsing every unnecessary thought until only the true dream remains. You ask what that means. They nod solemnly and offer you a single sandal made of moonlight. Okay, sure. The empire is changing. Time is looser. People no longer use hours. They measure their days in naps. Instead of calendars, they keep dream diaries. Legal documents are now signed not with ink, but with intention. The Khan, still stubbornly awake, becomes increasingly agitated. He demands his generals develop anti-drowsiness armor and orders a new campaign to wake the skies permanently. But his army refuses. They've joined the Yurt of Sleep Philosophers, a group dedicated to dream journaling and high-level snuggling. The Khan is furious. "I am not losing a kingdom to a NAP," he screams, while a pigeon gently licks his ear. Yes, pigeons lick now. It's best not to question. You're sent to negotiate with the yawn storm. That's right. You are now an ambassador to a metaphysical weather pattern made of collective exhalations and nostalgia. You travel northeast, through fog beds and snooze villages. You stop in one town where the mayor greets you with a 6-hour hug and a bag of roasted daydreams. You move on. Finally, you reach the edge of the storm. It's not violent. It's not windy. It's soft. A dome of barely there murmurs, like the universe is humming itself to sleep. You touch it, and the air bends around your fingers. A voice greets you, not from ahead, from inside your own yawn. It says, "You made it." You say, "What are you?" The voice answers, "I'm not new. I'm the dream you've been forgetting your whole life." It shows you things. Your first nap, rocked by a wind sister while the sheep sang lullabies. Your great-grandfather, dreaming of a blue horse under a silver sun. A future version of you, asleep in a hammock woven from moments you thought you'd lost. The storm isn't here to destroy anything. It's here to absorb the noise, the meetings, the wars, the footnotes, the fear. It tells you, you cannot dream while clenching your teeth. And just like that, you understand. You return to the capital, not with demands, but with a proposal. A new system, not based on conquest, but cycles. You call it the rhythm. Wake, wonder, rest, repeat. The people accept. Even the Khan, grumbling, eventually naps for 3 days straight and wakes up giggling. You build shrines not to gods, but to naps. Not just sleep. Naps. The art of purposeful pause. Each shrine contains a dream contributed by a citizen. Some are sad. Some are funny. One is just a picture of a goat wearing glasses. But all are sacred. The cloud? It becomes part of the city. A gentle guardian. People wave to it. It occasionally waves back. And the yawn storm? Still out there. Still growing. But now welcomed. The city greets you like a half-forgotten song. Its streets humming with static and yawns. The cloud above, once a soft guardian, now drifts sluggishly, heavy with unseen weight. You feel it. A pressure that's neither storm nor fog but something in between, like the exhaustion before a long sigh. You clutch the lantern tightly. It's your anchor, your reminder. Walking through the streets, you notice faces glazed over with artificial alertness. Eyes that blink mechanically, smiles too tight to be genuine. The wakeful generation they call themselves. Wired on neurocafe, fueled by yawn-off, and convinced they're living their best lives. But you see the cracks. A jitter in their steps. A tremble in their hands. A moment when the smile falters and the exhaustion leaks through. You remember a fact from your history lessons. After the Industrial Revolution, workers fought for 8-hour shifts, recognizing the toll of relentless labor. Now, centuries later, people are fighting the same battle with their minds and bodies, but this time the enemy is themselves. You find a cafe, the last refuge of honest naps and dim lights. Inside, a group gathers, their voices low and warm like a shared blanket. They call themselves the Restless Revolutionaries. You join them. Their leader, a woman named Lila, has eyes that twinkle with rebellion and soft rebellion. She tells you stories of stolen dreams, of nights spent chasing productivity ghosts, of mornings that arrive before the stars have left. You share your lantern's light. It illuminates faces hungry for change. Together, you hatch a plan, a guerrilla campaign of naps, dream seeds, and whispered lullabies. You call it Project Snooze, the silent resistance. The tactics are simple but radical. Nap pods disguised as street art. Dream flash mobs that suddenly yawn and stretch in unison. Secret pillow exchanges. The city slowly responds. Business meetings end early. Subways fill with quiet dozing heads. Screens dim at precisely 2:33 p.m. Historians still argue whether Project Snooze was a coordinated effort or a spontaneous awakening that caught the city off guard. Either way, it works, for a while. But Wakey counters with the Alert Army, a battalion of AI-powered drones that patrol nap zones, zapping snoozers awake with buzzing lights and motivational slogans. The battle becomes a dance, a cat-and-mouse chase between rest and unrest. You find yourself dodging drones, slipping into shadowy corners, always a step ahead. One night, you encounter a drone malfunctioning. Its lights flicker erratically. It hums a soft, almost lullaby-like tune. You pause, reach out. The drone tilts, and for a fleeting moment, you see something human, a flicker of understanding. Then it powers down. You pocket the remains, a small, blinking heart of silicon. It becomes a symbol, proof that even the machines crave sleep. You carry it with you as a reminder that the war isn't just about humans versus tech. It's about reclaiming a rhythm, a balance between wakefulness and dreams, between hustle and hush, between noise and silence. And you're leading the charge. The cloud above shifts again. This time it's lighter, more curious, as if watching, waiting, to see what you'll do next. You wake up in the middle of a street that feels like a dream, a blurred intersection where time folds like origami and the pavement hums faintly underfoot. The city is quieter now, but tension buzzes beneath the calm like a held breath. People move slower, more deliberate, as if trying to remember how to just be. You clutch your lantern. Its liquid twilight glows softly against the evening haze. The air smells like warm wool and old books, the kind of scent that makes you want to curl up and listen to someone's heartbeat. You think about the cloud, that omnipresent, mischievous shape drifting overhead. Historians still argue whether the cloud is a sentient being or just a strange weather phenomenon born from human collective exhaustion. Either way, you feel its gaze. Not hostile, not friendly, just expectant. You decide to climb to the highest rooftop you can find, the vantage point for what comes next. The city sprawls beneath you, a patchwork quilt of flickering lights and restless shadows. You set the dreamback drum on the ledge and tap it once, twice, then 3 times. The beats ripple through the air, gentle waves of sound that brush the edges of dreams and reality. And then something happens. The cloud begins to shift. Slowly, almost shyly, it folds in on itself, condensing into a thick, cottony sphere. You blink and realize it's no longer a threat. It's a messenger, collaborator. The cloud's soft voice hums in your mind. We must talk. You nod, because here, in this twilight between wakefulness and sleep, words feel like feathers, light, fleeting, but full of meaning. The cloud reveals its story. Once, long ago, it was a guardian of dreams, a keeper of balance between day and night. But as humans began to conquer sleep, turning nights into productivity marathons, the cloud grew tired. It began absorbing the unrest, the forgotten yawns, the silent screams of exhaustion. It became heavy, burdened, conflicted. Now it wants to help, but it needs a guide, someone who understands both worlds. You realize that's why it declared war on itself, to draw attention, to start a conversation, to shake the world awake. The cloud offers a pact, a truce forged from shared understanding. You agree. Together, you'll restore the dance between rest and activity. The cloud promises to soften its storms and bring soothing rains. You vow to teach the world to listen to its own rhythms again. But there's a catch. The cloud can't do this alone. It needs human participation, a collective willingness to embrace imperfection, to accept pauses, to welcome dreams as part of living. You smile, because this war, this boring war for sleep, isn't about battles or enemies. It's about remembering that sometimes the best way to move forward is to stop and breathe and dream. You descend from the rooftop, your lantern now glowing steady and warm. The city watches, the cloud listens, and for the first time in a long time, you feel hopeful. You wander through the city streets, which now feel like a living, breathing organism slowly waking from a long, restless slumber. The lights no longer glare like interrogation beams, but pulse gently, syncing with the slow, collective heartbeat of the people. You pass a park where children play, not on screens, but with sticks and stones, their laughter soft like wind chimes. A group of artists paint murals that shimmer and shift depending on the viewer's mood, a visual lullaby to soothe hurried souls. You remember the historical fact. In ancient times, societies revered sleep as sacred, believing it to be a bridge between worlds. It's ironic, you think, how far we've drifted from that respect. In a quiet cafe, you meet a neuroscientist named Dr. Mira, who shares a quirky theory. She believes that the cloud isn't just atmospheric. It's a collective psychic projection of humanity's exhaustion and hope. Historians still argue whether this idea is science or poetry, but Dr. Myra's eyes gleam with conviction. She tells you that our dreams, anxieties, and desires weave together, forming a dreamscape that influences the physical world in subtle ways. You listen, fascinated. The idea that the cloud could be a mirror of our inner lives makes the whole war feel less like a battle and more like a conversation with ourselves. Dr. Mira invites you to a secret lab where they study sleep patterns using ancient techniques mixed with futuristic tech. You try on a headband that records your brainwaves as you nap. Your dream is vivid. You're flying over a sea of soft pillows, chased by a fleet of giggling clouds. You wake smiling. She tells you that dreaming is essential not just for rest, but for creativity, empathy, and problem solving. It's the antidote to the relentless do more, be more culture. You realize the battle isn't just about shutting down the noise. It's about reclaiming your mind. Back outside, the cloud glides overhead, its edges softening into gentle waves. People stop and look up, some whispering thanks, others simply breathing a little easier. The war still rages, but the fight has shifted. No longer a clash of power, but a movement towards harmony. You think about the pillow catapult, the dreamback drum, and the lucid lighthouse, all symbols of this slow revolution. Sleep is no longer a passive state, but an active reclaiming of self. You feel the weight of this responsibility, but also its lightness. Because in this war, every yawn, every nap, every moment of rest is a victory. You smile and close your eyes for a moment, letting the city's gentle rhythm carry you forward. You wander into an old bookstore tucked between two glass towers, the smell of worn paper and forgotten stories wrapping around you like a cozy blanket. The shopkeeper, a small man with round glasses perched precariously on his nose, greets you with a knowing smile. He hands you a dusty tome titled The War for Sleep, a chronicle of restless times. Inside, you find pages filled with stories, both factual and fantastical, about humanity's endless tussle with sleep. One story catches your eye: the invention of the hypno-hat in the early 21st century. A bizarre device designed to induce instant naps using gentle vibrations and soft music. It was a commercial flop, but beloved by niche communities who swore it changed their lives. You imagine yourself slipping on the hypno-hat, drifting off while the world buzzes on. Historians still argue whether such inventions were more placebo than science or genuine breakthroughs in sleep technology. The shopkeeper leans in and whispers, "Sleep isn't just a biological need, it's a rebellion." You ponder that as you step back outside. The city's nighttime sounds are softer now. Footsteps echo less urgently. Windows glow with warm, amber light, inviting rest instead of productivity. You realize how far things have shifted since the first days of Wakey. People have started to reclaim their nights, some with digital detoxes, others by reviving bedtime stories. You pass a group of teenagers sharing a blanket fort under a tree, their faces lit by fairy lights and laughter. They look free, untethered from the constant buzz of alerts. You think about the debates among scholars. Is the war for sleep a symptom of modern anxiety or a fundamental shift in how we value time and self? Maybe both. You find a quiet bench and sit, feeling the cool night air brush your skin. Your lantern glows faintly beside you, a reminder that light can exist even in the quietest moments. As you lean back, you catch a glimpse of the cloud, no longer looming but hovering like a gentle guardian. You wonder if it's tired too, or if it's finally found peace. You yawn, a slow, satisfying stretch that feels like a small victory. And you realize the war might be boring, sure, but maybe boring is exactly what we need. Because sometimes the most radical act is to simply rest, to stop, to breathe, and to dream. You walk past the city's grand old theater, now transformed into the sleep sanctuary, a place where live lullabies and whispered stories lull audiences into gentle naps. Inside, the atmosphere is thick with velvet and soft murmurs. The stage glows with amber light, and the seats are piled high with plush pillows and weighted blankets. You find a spot near the back and sink in, feeling the heaviness of the day finally giving way. The performer begins, a storyteller with a voice like warm honey and a cadence that soothes the sharpest edges of your mind. She weaves tales of ancient sleep rituals, from Egyptian sand gardens to Japanese ink dreams. You hear that the first recorded nap clubs appeared in 4th century Greece, places where philosophers debated while dozing. It feels strange and comforting, like discovering a secret history that's been hiding in plain sight. She pauses and shares a quirky tidbit. In Victorian England, people often took 2 sleeps, first and second sleep, with a quiet hour in between for reflection or even visiting neighbors. Historians still argue whether this segmented sleep was a cultural norm or just a symptom of poor lighting and colder nights. You find yourself drifting, the stories mingling with the gentle music, floating you away. Suddenly, the cloud outside seems to pulse softly in time with the lullaby. You realize it's participating in this dance of rest, joining the human rhythm. The performance ends, but the hush lingers. You step outside into the cool night, feeling lighter, as if a weight has lifted. The war for sleep feels less like a fight and more like a gathering, a shared commitment to reclaim what's lost. You glance up at the cloud, now a gentle haze stretching across the sky, and smile. Tonight, you think sleep is winning, and for once, that feels like enough. You find yourself wandering into a quiet neighborhood where the streetlights have been dimmed deliberately, a grassroots campaign known as the Night Brightness Rebellion. Here, residents cherish darkness as a precious commodity, fighting against the endless glare of screens and neon ads. The air smells faintly of jasmine and freshly cut grass, a stark contrast to the usual scent of coffee and car exhaust. You pause by a window where a family is settling down for their nightly ritual. Soft whispers, warm tea, and stories shared in low tones. They invite you in. Inside, the walls are lined with shelves full of books and jars labeled dream dust, sleep seeds, and silent songs. The mother explains these are homemade remedies and rituals passed down through generations, designed to coax the body gently into rest. She offers you a cup of chamomile tea, and as you sip, the warmth spreads through you like a soft hug. You think about how, in medieval Europe, monks used chants to lull themselves to sleep, an early example of sound therapy. It's a reminder that humanity has always sought creative ways to embrace rest. The father shares a quirky family tradition. Before bed, they perform the yawning countdown, a deliberate, synchronized series of yawns designed to trick the brain into relaxation. Historians still debate whether such rituals were common or isolated pockets of folk wisdom. You join in, and soon the room fills with contagious yawns. Laughter bubbles up, light and freeing. Outside, the cloud drifts lazily overhead, its shape softening like cotton candy melting in the sun. You realize that these small human acts, the dimmed lights, the whispered stories, the shared yawns, are the real front line in the war for sleep. It's not about grand battles, but tiny revolutions in bedrooms and backyards. You step outside, feeling the gentle pulse of the city's slowed heartbeat. The war continues, yes, but so does the hope. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You drift into a quiet corner of the city where a forgotten observatory has been repurposed as the Dream Observatory. The building's dome gleams faintly under the cloud's watchful eye. Inside, a group of sleep scientists and artists collaborate, blending data and dreams like painters mixing colors. They show you charts mapping brainwaves during different sleep stages, alongside abstract paintings inspired by dreams collected from volunteers worldwide. You learn that the term REM sleep was coined in the 1950s, marking a breakthrough in understanding how our brains recharge. But here, the team is exploring the edges of that knowledge, experimenting with dreamscaping, the art of shaping your dreams through suggestion. It sounds like science fiction, but the line between science and art feels deliciously blurred. One scientist shares a quirky experiment where volunteers were exposed to the scent of freshly baked bread before sleep, which reportedly influenced their dreams of home and comfort. Historians still debate whether such sensory influences on dreams are consistent or highly individual. You lie back on a reclining chair, donning a soft headset that hums quietly as it monitors your brain. Your eyelids grow heavy, and soon you're floating in a dreamscape where clouds swirl like paint strokes, and the city hums a lullaby just for you. You dream of soaring above the streets, the cloud your gentle companion, carrying you on a voyage through memory and imagination. You awaken slowly, the world soft and shimmering as if waking from a beautiful, shared secret. You realize that sleep is not a passive escape but a creative space, an uncharted territory where the boring war might finally find peace. The cloud outside glows faintly, a silent witness to your journey. You step out into the night, feeling the calm after the storm. The war is far from over, but with allies like this, you might just win. You drift into a quiet corner of the city where a forgotten observatory has been repurposed as the Dream Observatory. The building's dome gleams faintly under the cloud's watchful eye. Inside, a group of sleep scientists and artists collaborate, blending data and dreams like painters mixing colors. They show you charts mapping brainwaves during different sleep stages, alongside abstract paintings inspired by dreams collected from volunteers worldwide. You learn that the term REM sleep was coined in the 1950s, marking a breakthrough in understanding how our brains recharge. But here, the team is exploring the edges of that knowledge, experimenting with dreamscaping, the art of shaping your dreams through suggestion. It sounds like science fiction, but the line between science and art feels deliciously blurred. One scientist shares a quirky experiment where volunteers were exposed to the scent of freshly baked bread before sleep, which reportedly influenced their dreams of home and comfort. Historians still debate whether such sensory influences on dreams are consistent or highly individual. You lie back on a reclining chair, donning a soft headset that hums quietly as it monitors your brain. Your eyelids grow heavy, and soon you're floating in a dreamscape where clouds swirl like paint strokes, and the city hums a lullaby just for you. You dream of soaring above the streets, the cloud your gentle companion, carrying you on a voyage through memory and imagination. You awaken slowly, the world soft and shimmering as if waking from a beautiful, shared secret. You realize that sleep is not a passive escape but a creative space, an uncharted territory where the boring war might finally find peace. The cloud outside glows faintly, a silent witness to your journey. You step out into the night, feeling the calm after the storm. The war is far from over, but with allies like this, you might just win. You wander into a dimly lit alley transformed into a whimsical nighttime market, where stalls glow with soft lantern light and vendors sell all things sleep-related: herbal teas, cozy blankets, and tiny dream catchers crafted from feathers and moonbeams. The air is filled with the scent of chamomile and sandalwood, mingling with the quiet hum of hushed conversations. Here, the war for sleep feels more like a celebration than a battle. You stop at a stall run by an elderly woman who tells you about the sleep song tradition, a melody passed down through generations, believed to carry peaceful dreams. She hums a few bars, and the notes seem to ripple through the air, softening your thoughts like warm honey. You recall that lullabies have been used worldwide since ancient times to soothe restless children and adults alike. Her smile is mischievous as she shares a quirky fact. Some cultures believed that singing a lullaby backward could ward off nightmares. Historians still debate whether such beliefs were widespread or isolated folk practices. You buy a small wooden music box engraved with sleepy motifs, the gentle tune promising sweet dreams. As you continue through the market, you notice people exchanging stories about the cloud, some seeing it as a nuisance, others as a sign to slow down. You realize the cloud has become a shared symbol, a reminder that rest isn't a weakness but a vital part of life. The night grows deeper, the market's glow mingling with the soft embrace of the cloud overhead. You feel connected to this community, this collective pause in the relentless rush of modern life. The war for sleep may be boring, yes, but within its quiet folds lies a profound truth. Sometimes, the greatest victories come from simply letting go. You tuck the music box into your pocket, the lullaby humming softly, a promise to yourself and the cloud. You walk on, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. The city feels different now, softer, slower, as if the war for sleep has shifted from frantic battle to a quiet truce. You stroll through familiar streets bathed in the gentle glow of street lamps, their light no longer harsh but tender, like a whispered goodnight. You recall the many inventions and rituals you've encountered, the pillow catapult, the dreamback drum, the hypno hat, and the countless tiny acts of rebellion against exhaustion. In a cozy corner cafe, you sip warm milk infused with honey, feeling its soothing sweetness seep into your bones. A group nearby debates the nature of sleep, with one scholar insisting that dreams are the mind's way of rehearsing reality, while another argues they are windows into alternate dimensions. Historians still argue whether dreams hold hidden meanings or are simply random firings of neurons. You smile, knowing that part of the magic lies in the mystery itself. Outside, the cloud floats lazily across the night sky, now more a gentle companion than an ominous force. You feel its presence not as a burden, but as a reminder. Rest is essential, resistance is vital, and peace is possible. The war for sleep may never truly end. It's woven into the fabric of our lives, a slow dance between wakefulness and dreams. You find a quiet bench, settling in as the city hums softly around you. Your eyes grow heavy, and you welcome the pull of slumber. As you drift off, the world blurs into a comforting haze. The war has been boring, yes, but it has also been beautiful, a testament to the human need for rest, connection, and hope. And as the cloud embraces the night one last time, you know you'll carry this peace with you into your dreams. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sleep well and sweet dreams.